Hi guys, welcome to another Rando Nature. Today I am talking about the blue lobster. Well, I thought I was going to be talking about the blue lobsters, but actually there's a rainbow of lobsters out there. Very rare indeed. So I'm going to be talking about my top 5. But this video was inspired by the blue lobster. So I've got my blue lobster colours here. And even when we look at the blue lobster, you'll see it's made up of different colours. So coloration is a really interesting thing to look at in terms of lobsters. First of all, though, I thought I'd have a look at lobsters in art. So I'm going to quickly show you a couple of books here. So I went to this show called Surreal Things, and it was at the Victoria and Albert Museum in London. And it was all about surrealist artists. And so, of course, we had a very familiar sculpture there. And that was Salvador Dali's lobster phone. So I actually first saw it on the South Bank, and it was in the County Hall. They had a display of Dali's work. And then the next time I saw it was here at the V&A Museum. Okay, so as you can see, it's orange. Let's keep that in mind. We will be discussing orange later on, as well as blue. Okay, so the next artist that came to mind with lobsters was Andy Warhol. Now, this book is actually from a show that I went to see in Scotland, in Edinburgh. So it was at the National Galleries of Scotland. And basically, I haven't got a picture of the lobsters in here, but I've got one online, so I'm going to show you in a minute. I'm just going to show you roughly, kind of the technique. So here we've got a different silk screen by Andy Warhol. And you can see he tends to have, quite often he'll have the two images side by side and do something quite different with them. Or not necessarily too different, but, he'll be changing colours and shapes. And you can see here you've got like overlay of secondary colours and layers. So he works in silk screen. I think this is acrylic. Okay, so that's kind of the style, but I'm going to find the lobsters for you online. And then finally, for lobster art, we have Jeff Koons here. So I went to his retrospective at Versailles, and the show toured over to, this one's Astrup Fearnley Museum for Modern Kunst, which is modern art. So I saw it when it was in Versailles in, it was a while ago. Anyway, so it's a retrospective of his work, and he as well has done a sculpture of the lobster. Okay, so here's his lobster, and this is actually made out of aluminium. So I've seen all of these artworks in life, and I can tell you that this looks like plastic in real life. So he works very much in this, so it's a trompe-l'oeil, which in French it's, trick of the eye. And so this almost looks like an inflatable. I mean, it does look like an inflatable. So those are actually meant to be the handles where you hold on. And I can actually tell you it's definitely aluminium. So I've come up close with his work, and that's one of the privileges actually of working in galleries and museums. So obviously we were trained to do art handling, and we were also trained in condition reporting, and you have to have specialist gloves and really think about what you're doing with an artwork before you move it. Anyway, we're not talking about artworks tonight. We're talking about lobsters, but he did the lobster. So okay, and so that's kind of my there it is in art. And now we're going to have a look at the real thing. So let's have a quick look at the lobster. Let me share the screen. Actually, let me just get it to the right place. There we go. And I'm going to share my screen with you. All right. There we go. I want the lobster. Okay, so here we have Salvador Dali. Okay, and that's a picture from Tate Modern website, 1938. So that's yeah. And then we've got Christie's here. So Sotheby's and Christie's have sold the lobsters. So here they've got a pair, and I heard the lobsters from around the 1980s. So I know he's done some single lobsters, which from 1982. So these are probably around that time as well. And then we've got Jeff Koons. So as you can see, so this is his website. This is the artist's website. Got a bit of a dry throat tonight. And yeah, so as you can actually see on this picture, the lobster is suspended from the ceiling. So it's a challenge to install that one. But here's the real thing. Okay, so this is the American lobster. And as you can see, the American lobster, so we've got blue lobster down here as well, but we're going to talk about you in a minute. But the American lobster is one of the most common. We also have the European lobster, and we have lobsters in Canada. These are the ones that you would be most familiar with. So it's actually got a mixture of the blues and the orange and the blacks and the brown. So overall, it looks kind of brown from a distance, but you can actually see it's made up of all sorts of colours. So I'm going to tell you a few facts about the lobsters, and then we're going to start looking at some of these colours. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to bring up my text because I'm going to read a few things to you. All right then. Okay, so colour is significant in the lobster world in terms of defining rarity. With 80 to 90 species identified worldwide, categorized through 15 different types of genera of lobsters, I'm just going to take you through a few of my favorites with some lobster facts along the way. Okay, so we're going to start with some facts first. Lobsters are found in large numbers around the world's oceans and sometimes in fresh water. Okay, so I've actually been told by a friend who lives near the coast. I said, how would you go about finding a lobster? And they said to me, oh, well, actually, if you look on the sand near the rocks, you might see a little pathway, and there's a chance you might find a lobster behind the rocks. So, but I can't think of whether I've actually ever really seen a lobster before, because I mean, personally, it's not something that I consume. So I'm not familiar with them in that sense. And then if there was one in the sea while I was swimming, I'd freak out. So, and I'd run away. So I don't know if I have or I haven't. Maybe at some point. Maybe actually in an aquarium. That's the most likely. Okay, so they live on average to 50 years old. But as we'll discuss when we look at colours, this is not always the case for the less camouflaged lobsters or ones that meet with a fisher's boat. So lobsters have a hard exoskeleton that covers their soft flesh, or fishy, what did I say the other day? Fishy flesh. Anyway, 3 pairs of claws on the front legs, 10 legs in total, and a snout that covers their head and just beyond. They're usually found roaming around seabeds. They live in little caves and crevices. Mothers carry the babies for 1 year, and then they are released as larvae into the water to continue with the next stages of development. Lobsters actually shed their shells as they outgrow them over time. So, I mean, I didn't know that. I didn't know they shed their shells. And yeah, so I think the interesting thing is though, what colour is a lobster? So what would you expect to see? I'm going to tell you a bit about what I would have expected to see. So when I was really young, so we had The Little Mermaid, this film, and it had okay, so I think Disney called him a lobster, and in the actual film, he's called Sebastian, and I think he actually refers to himself as a crab. And to be honest, prior to knowing about lobsters, I accepted that he was a lobster, and I thought, okay, so he's kind of red and he's got some claw, like he's got a set of claws, and okay, he's a lobster. But then but then as I've looked into the subject a lot more, I mean, I've discovered that they have three sets of claws in general, not always. They have small legs underneath, which Sebastian had, but then obviously the coloration is completely different. So a red, you can find a red lobster, but it's super, super rare. So I'd be interested to know. I mean, I think Sebastian calls himself a crab sometimes. And that's another thing as well. So sometimes they're called crayfish, sometimes crabs. You know, it's quite difficult to identify sometimes. So yeah, that was kind of like my accepted version for a long time. And so yeah, Sebastian was red. And then when I saw lobsters in real life, the colour was hard to describe, a mixture of brownish, bluish, blackish, orangish, orangey camouflage. Sebastian was quite a softened version. I observed the real life lobster with long tentacles, several more claws following the big ones, and more legs than I can imagine coordinating. I now know they have 5 pairs of legs to be precise. So if you actually look underneath the lobster, it's quite a complex structure. And so, you know, they have the 3 sets of claws, and they have the 2 sets of smaller legs, which I believe are the swimmer legs. You know, so then the tentacles. So they're actually, you know, quite complex to look at when you look underneath. So let's talk about pigment. As we're going to be talking about pigment, I'd like to bring up the blue lobster. Or a lobster. Let's show a lobster. Come on now. Here we go. So we've got a couple here. We can see the blue, we can see the American. Let's clear off a few things. There we go. I can see what I'm doing. All right, so let's talk about their pigment. The lobster has 3 pigments. Now, to quote Dr. Tulsi of the New England Aquarium, when we look at lobsters and any crustacean, you actually look through a layer of yellow pigment, through a layer of blue pigment, down to the skin, which is red. And it's all the stacking up of the different colours that lets us see the lobsters as this kind of muddy brown colour. So colour in lobsters really depends on 2 things. Their diet, which gives them the red pigment astaxanthin, and their genetics, which determines how much protein they have. So essentially, if they haven't got a lot of the astaxanthin, which is creating the red pigment in their diet, then they're not going to have the same coloration. And as well, genetics can impact on that. So I would also myself add that their environment is a contributing factor, because as you'll see in the Yeti lobster, which I'll show you soon, you know, you'll see how it's developed to survive in its environment. So the lobster diet contains red pigment, the astaxanthin, and it's found in some plants. This actually protects the lobster from stress. So it acts as an antioxidant for the lobster. The colour is absorbed over time and travels to that deeper layer of skin, as I've mentioned, and the surface layer colour appears mottled brown. If the lobster ceased to eat the pigment, they would not have a red hue to their deeper skin, and they would actually be blue, dietary blue, as they say. So it'd be all down to the fact that they don't have the astaxanthin. When they are put, okay, so I need to find something else to look at. I don't want to do this while we are, let's look at toy lobsters. No, let's look at costume of the lobster. That would be funny. Okay, we'll do that because we're going to do, I'm going to tell you something now. Oh my gosh. This is so scary. Oh no, whoa. I would be really upset if someone got me that. I wouldn't want anyone thinking that I make these videos, like I'm making video about lobster because I'm so into it that I'd want something like this. That's so scary. All these legs. Oh my gosh. And this is a men's lobster costume, so it's probably too big for me. But that doesn't matter because if I hope my brother doesn't see this video, otherwise he's going to buy me one anyway. It's going to be a Christmas present. Okay, so let's just leave that there because that's kind of funny because I'm going to read this bit now. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so when the lobster is put into boiling hot water, the red pigment is released in full swing as blue and yellow proteins break down. This gives lobsters their red color when cooked. It's the increase in the astaxanthin, the pigment in the lobster shell, which means they turn pink red. Okay, so let's talk about the lobster first before I launch into the rainbow. So start with the American lobster. Okay, so we were just having a look at that. Let's get the American lobster back and take away the human lobsters. All right, so the American lobster, or the Humerus americanus, the European lobster, which is the Humerus agamarus, and certain tropical lobsters are widely consumed, and they're going to be the ones that we're most familiar with. In terms of dangers to the lobster, I mean, we have the risk of overfishing, which obviously decreases the population. And if it isn't given the opportunity to recover, then, you know, that's a real issue in terms of future population. Another thing which could be a danger for them is certain things found in the sea. So like wastes, plastics, and we're not talking about, you know, we're talking about all sorts of things that are found in the sea, you know, but basically it's human intervention, and that can lead to certain diseases for them. In terms of yeah, obviously they've got predators, so that's always a threat. Yeah, so now it's time to dive into the lobster rainbow. I'm going to take you through my top 5, and once I've started looking into the colour spectrum of lobsters, I've discovered that I've literally discovered some of the most rarest sightings, because some of these lobsters were only discovered in the last kind of 15 years. Again, as I said, genetics and environment play a part in coloration. So I think also the colour indicates in terms of certain lobsters where they will have come from and what kind of conditions they will have, they'll live in. So we're going to turn to the blue one first. Let's have a look at the blue. Here we go. So this is the blue lobster. This is one that was actually found by this one. I think it was found quite recently, and probably in the last 4 or 5 years. See these little tapes around their claws there, just so that they don't kind of grab at things, grab at people. And what I'm going to be saying about a lot of these lobsters actually is because they're rare, they are taken to aquariums or given over to scientists, marine scientists and researchers. These there's no benefits to eating a different colored lobster because there's no suggestion that it would taste any different. It's just a matter of their coloring. So because I always thought, why don't you throw it back into the sea? But if you do throw it back into the sea, there's the risk that it will just get caught again, or that it's gone through some kind of, it's got kind of disconcerted. And so in that sense, if you do take it to an aquarium, and I'm not talking about a personal, a home aquarium, I'm talking about a facility, a local aquarium, for example. Like we have them in London. We have a big aquarium in London, not far from where I saw the Dali actually. But yeah, so let's have a look at some facts about the blue lobster. Okay, so it's blue because of the overproduction of protein, which leads to the overall color. Due to their color, it's hard for the lobster to camouflage, and therefore their life expectancy goes down, with many not reaching adulthood. While the average lobster can live for over 50 years, blue lobsters are, much more likely to be spotted in the wild. So it's estimated that 1 in every 1 to 2 million catches will see a blue lobster. Yeah, so this is really rare. And this is why they were really excited. It was 2 fishermen who discovered this blue lobster. Let's look at one really quickly. I mean, if we look at it closely, you can see the darker and the light blue here. With this one here, it's got this really light sea blue with the darker blue. So, now moving on to my next one, the Yeti lobster. Okay, so I decided to get one up here. So I've got it. I don't want to put it too big because, as I said before, I'm fascinated with creatures, but I don't want to touch them. And sometimes I get a bit freaked out. You know what I mean? So I'm just kind of quite happy to observe from a distance, just see what they do. So for example, I love dolphins, and I'd love to go and see dolphins from a boat in Scotland. But I don't want to go and touch them, and I just like to see them swimming, jumping through the waves without disturbing them, just doing our thing alongside them, nothing, that's how I like it. So yeah, a big picture of this one really freaked me out. So as you can see though, it's got these little hairs, and so it's evolved to have these hairs because of where where it lives and how it processes its environment. So the fairy lobster, or the Yeti lobster, they were only discovered in 2005, so really it's only been 15 going on 16 years, and they're roughly 6 inches long. They live in the depths of the ocean. Bacteria on the hair allows them to detoxify their environment. So it's really important for them, it's obviously a really fine balance for them in terms of survival. And if their hairs were damaged, or if they were taken out of their natural environment, it would be, that would be quite difficult. I don't know how it would survive. Having said that, it is really important to learn about these creatures, and so it's really amazing that we've made like we've discovered them, because it's not just about looking into how they are, what they do, how they exist. It's also, once you've become aware of them, you can think about protecting them, how humans can, stay away from the habitat, and we won't, be vigilant. So yeah, it's a bit freaky though, let's be fair. Let's be honest. Yeah, I mean, it freaks me out a bit, but I just thought it was so funny, and so unusual. So there we go. Have I said how rare they are? They're super rare. You know, really interesting. So let's move on to the yellow lobster. All right, now there's a lobster here that was actually, okay, let me read about the yellow lobster first. I'm going to put this one up though, because I find this one, I'll tell you about this one in a minute. Okay. So with the yellow lobster, it's thought to occur in 1 in every 30 million, and they have only recently been identified. So again, the color is a genetic abnormality that affects the way the shell develops pigment. Due to the rarity, again, the hope is that if they are caught, they are rehoused in an aquarium and not sold commercially. And so that means you would have the opportunity to see them, study them, and make sure that they, live out the rest of their life. And, they won't ever be fished again. And also they won't come into contact with predators in the wild. And with that coloration, it's probably they're at danger because of how they stand out. So, okay, I am going to show you this one, but it freaks me out because he looks like a big crayfish, actually. Look. Oh, hang on. Yeah, he freaks me out. He's too much. But basically, he is called Banana, and he was caught, it says, off the Maine coast. And yeah, so they called him Banana, and they look after him, and obviously get to see what he does, how he reacts to his environment, what yeah, they can have a study of him. But he's just a bit too much for me. So he's quite big as well, like you can see that person's hand. And but I'm glad he's got a home, you know what I mean? So I think that's great. Okay, now I wanted to take you onto the two-tone lobster. This is really interesting. Okay, so get rid of the yellow lobster and go into two-tone. Now, as you can see, let's go for this one. Why's everything gone blue there? There we go. Okay, so this is the two-tone lobster. Now, let me tell you my facts first, and then I'm going to start talking about the colours. Okay, so two-tone is 1 in 50 million. So it's 1 in 50 million chance of seeing one. With some examples, the two shells are literally two different solid colours. So actually, I'm going to show you probably, so in actual fact, with the two-tone lobster, although it's got two different colours, it can be more or less half-half, but generally what it is it has this, so we've got the darker half here, so we've got black here and maybe some dark blue, moving into orange here. We've got darker colours here, but with orange here, then we've got, the black and the orange here with the more distinct orange here. It's not half. I'm going to show you a half, I'm going to show you a slightly different type and show you what I'm kind of referring to. But So fortunately, due to their rarity, if one is caught, they will most likely be taken to an aquarium for display. The two-tone lobsters are often unisex or hermaphrodite. So yeah, they've got the best of everything. Then you've got the Halloween lobster. So this, I'd argue, is more the literally half orange, half black. Let me show you the Halloween lobster. Okay, so this is a Halloween lobster. Let me see if I can get better so we can see all of it. Okay, so that's Halloween lobster. And this lobster is, let me see how rare it is. Okay, so the Halloween lobster is 1 in 100 million in terms of finding one. And, you know, it has perfectly got this line straight through. It's perfect divide. Okay, so for example, here's two-tone again. So look, you could have a blue claw, an orange claw, and then be half-half. But this particular one is the whole way down. And I don't know if we can find it here, but one was actually discovered around Halloween and they put it on display. Hang on, it might be this one. Okay, so we've had banana. I'm trying to remember what this one was called. Oh, I think it's this one. It's called something like, not Sparky, no. Oh, I've forgotten its name. I can't remember its name, but I was reading about it the other day and I recognised it. It's definitely that one. Well, you've got calico here. So I'm not going to talk about calico, but you can see the different colours there. But what's this guy called? Oh, I can't remember what he's called. Let me just look up the story. I'm not going to go on the website though, because you see, the thing is, with these Halloween not with the lobsters, sorry, with these news websites, they've got so many pop-ups and things. Oh, here we go. There's more costumes. He's called Sparky, Sharky. I can't remember what his name was. A rare lobster on display. He's found in Salem. Pinchy. He's called Pinchy. Okay, so where is he? He's called Pinchy. And basically, they put him on display at Halloween time. So, you know, big attraction. But yeah, you know, they're going to look after him and keep him fed and things like that. So hopefully, you know, Pinchy will have quite a long life compared to if he was left in the wild, and depending which side you saw of him, he wouldn't camouflage so well. Okay, so now we're going to go into one of my favorites. This is my favorite lobster. The cotton candy lobster. I just think the color is amazing. I mean, it's just amazing. And it still freaks me out completely because it's got like beady eyes and it's got tentacles and stuff, but I love it. I think the color is amazing. I'd love to go and see it swimming. So yeah, we've got that picture up. Just trying to see if there's I think we've got the best really in terms of seeing color. Oh, there's someone holding one. That's pretty amazing, isn't it? Okay, so we're going to go back to our, oh, there's our original. I love this one. The colour's just so impressive. Okay, so cotton candy lobsters. You would experience a cotton candy lobster 1 in every 100 million. Only if you have ever been caught. It's thought that their colour is down to a lack of pigment. So no one colour is dominant. That's how you see this rainbow effect. With your familiar brownish lobster, it's also a mixture of colours, but due to the strength of the pigment, it gives it this overall appearance of being a darker colour. So whereas the cotton candy lobster lacks pigment and so it's light. If an example of this lobster were to be caught, they are usually given straight to researchers to study. So yeah, absolutely, they would be, it's really important to look into this creature and just learn as much as we can, and look after it while it's in our care. So I absolutely love that one. And I totally recommend you guys actually go and see videos of the lobsters, because there's so many videos online on YouTube, and you can see them in their natural environment swimming around, and yeah, and also you can see them at aquariums as well, and how they handle them and feed them. Okay, so do we get orange lobsters? Well, yes, we do. If the red astaxanthin is released during the lobster's life, it can have an orange hue. However, this is very rare, so it's 1 in 30 million who'll have this coloration. And again, these finds are usually donated to an aquarium. So let's see if we can find an orange lobster, which is a living orange lobster. Because what actually happens is, I've seen some stories. Okay, so that's an orange lobster. There we go. So that's rather unusual though. I've actually seen that in some articles that if you find an orange, or if you catch an orange lobster amongst the brownish ones, or say for example they were delivered, then you might find the supplier being contacted saying, why are you delivering a lobster that's already cooked? And the reality is it isn't cooked, it's actually orange. But it's just so unlikely that they would assume that, there was something wrong there. And so it is possible. Moving into the rarest lobster sighting, the white lobster. So let me get this up. It's the ghost lobster. Okay, here it is. This is the ghost lobster. And it's actually quite interesting if you can see it on, if you watch a video, because it's got these little bits at the front. He looks quite different to the other ones in terms of the way, how it's structured. It looks so delicate. I wouldn't want to test it though. Okay, so let's talk about the white lobster, or the albino lobster, or the ghost lobster. Okay, so this lobster has no pigment. This occurs in most creatures, but with lobsters, it's only the case in 1 in 100 million, approximately. So this is super rare. And yeah, so I just really wanted to show you, because we're looking at the spectrum. So we've literally gone from the darker hues right into the no pigment, so really strong pigment, to like no pigment whatsoever. And so as I said, the threats to lobsters would be overfishing and pollution, but you would be it's very unlikely that you would catch a white lobster. If it were to happen though, it should definitely go into be handed over to researchers, or we've got the marine, so we've got the hatcheries who do marine conservation, so they know a lot more. You've got the aquariums. It's certainly not, you should certainly it should be protected. I think that's all my lobster information actually. So I was then going to show you just here. So we had the orange lobster, we've looked at the ghost lobster, we've still got a lovely cotton candy one here. This one's quite interesting actually. Look at that. It says it's ghost, but it's purple. So that doesn't make sense to me. Oh, tank bread. Okay, so that's completely different. We're not looking, I haven't been talking about tank bread. I've been talking about, you know, in the wild, in terms of what they need, where you might find them and that kind of stuff. Okay, so in the UK we have the National Lobster Hatchery, and I believe they're based in Padstow, which is a coastal place in the UK. Yeah, Padstow. So we have the so I believe the Rick Stein restaurant is in Padstow, and they serve lobster. So I'm sure he's also aware of the hatchery and the work that they do. Yeah, so they're a charity in England, and as you can see here, they've got their little shop of lobsters. So I would be quite happy to buy a little plush one for my collection. But also here you can adopt a lobster, and they send you, you know, information about it. So you can adopt a single one there, that's £4. Adopt a whole family for £12. Adopt lobster sweethearts for £8. But you know, it's really great to you know, support these things, and it's also really good to look into the work, what they do, and how you can get involved. You might just want to go and have a look. So they actually hold events. I don't think they're holding anything at the moment. I think they're closed at the moment after everything that's been going on, but you can go and see lobsters. Actually, I should probably take a trip, shouldn't I? I should go to Padstow, because I've said I don't think I've ever seen a lobster. Might be able to go and see a blue one. Never know. One that's kind of been looked after. Anyway, so that's really all I have to say about lobsters. And if my brother buys me this, I hope it's really expensive. And then he'll be like, no. Yeah, okay, so look, it says it's like £66, so that's quite an expensive joke. We'll see. Okay, so short screen sharing. Okay, perfect. So yeah, that's really what I have to say. I just wanted to kind of show you what's out there. As I said, you know, it's not like I wouldn't want to touch a lobster or anything else, but I just have such an appreciation for the different colours and varieties. And you know, I do enjoy actually finding out a bit more about how they live, and you know, what part they play in the ecosystem, because all of the animals, all of the creatures on this planet play a part in the ecosystem. So you know, it's really important to know what's around us. And I've also heard that I have a friend who lives on the coast who said that I could actually see seahorses there as well. So might actually have to go to the coast, which I actually love doing anyway in England. So, and Scotland, Wales, and Ireland, they're all amazing to go and see coastal creatures, and to also explore woodlands and lots of natural beauty environments. So, okay, that's enough from me. Go and have a look at some videos of lobsters in general. They're so much fun. And I'm going to put a link in the description to a video which I thought was really great. So there's a guy who's talking about 15 rarest lobsters, and you get to see all these different colours, and you know, it kind of brings to life what I've been talking about in pictures. So, and if you can go and see some lobsters in exhibitions as well, that'd be amazing too. So, okay, I'll catch you soon for the next Rando Nature. All right, bye.